Our next question is from Greg in Tampa, Florida.
This is Greg calling from Tampa, Florida. So my house it's kind of a disaster. Pretty much everything is just messy enough that I know I really need to just declutter and purge. But it's not bad enough to keep me from like functioning or finding things. Like I'm not a hoarder, but it is enough stuff that it kind of stresses me out when people come over. And I would just love to, be more organized overall as a person. So where do I start with that? Like, how do you become a quote unquote organized person?
Kristen, I love this question. How do I become an organized person? I don't think being an organized person is really the goal, though, because you can organize everything and still have a bunch of stuff. It's just not messy anymore.
Right.
It is true that a messy home is sort of a sign of dysfunction. I'm not using that morally. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but having a messy home is a symptom of something else, it seems like.
It can be, yeah. And so I think, what does it mean to be organized to you? Like I think that, like you were talking about adding value, and that was your question that you asked. I always like to ask my clients, why are we here? What is your bigger goal? Do you want to get better sleep, more time with your family, a stress-free morning routine, whatever it is? It could be small, it could be big. Figuring out what that is. So for the caller, what is his why? And once you really know that, and again, part of going through the decision-making process, your why is going to become more clear. So it might be kind of loose and ethereal at first, then it's going to get more crystallized as you go through and continue to let go. I also would argue that disorganization is not always, like the way we would see disorganization and clutter is not always a sign of dysfunction. I asked my father-in-law for permission to use him as an example today. He's a retired middle school English teacher, and his wife and my husband and I have tried to organize his desk so many times. And within days, he didn't ask us to, so that's the key.
Yes.
Within days, it was back to, square one. But I don't feel like he's a dysfunctional person. He's one of like the people I admire most in the world. He's so smart and always sharing knowledge with people and always like caring for the ones he loves. So I feel like for him, trying to keep a system that would look organized to us would actually slow him down. So the more I get into my work, the more I'm learning that. I think when I first started off, I was like, this is the way, minimalism, you're keeping too much. I know it.
And what I've realized is you don't expect your clients to become minimalists.
No.
And what you've learned there, you said your father-in-law?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what you've learned from your father-in-law is that the thing that is messy to you may not be messy to him.
Yeah.
So there's no dysfunction there because it's not messy to him, even though if it was your space, it would be dysfunctional for you. So it's highly individual.
It is. His visual sensitivity is not on the level that mine is. So he doesn't see that. We also talk about like clutter thresholds. Everybody has a different one. So I think his clutter threshold is a lot higher. I think the only time it causes any issues is if his wife is like, come on, time to clean up. She's very tidy, but. Yeah.
Oh, man. I like to do like a little wordplay with order.
Yeah.
You can think of order as something being in its proper place, but also order as a command, right? And so something that you're being compelled to do. And so the way you get ordered with your things is by paying attention to the orders that are coming from your soul. What are you compelled to do from within?
That's good.
And that helps you get organized from without. And one of the things I hear in Greg's question is this tension that's coming up when people come over to visit. And it seems like there's a connection there that's part of his why, that he likes having company. He likes playing host. And this is when it bothers him. But when he's alone, I can kind of deal with it and manage it. So, hey, it could be a way to work that angle by saying, I'm going to throw a party or have someone over. I'm just going to have company over. Game night, dinner, coffee, tea, conversation. Doesn't have to be oriented around things. And I'm going to do that once a week or once every other week or once a month. Enough to create that consistent pain point to where I am motivated to get my place situated in a way that's conducive to how I really want to live in it.
I love that.
Yeah. It's funny you said the clutter threshold.
Yeah.
That is. So mine is probably a little higher than Josh's. I don't know if you know this or not, but my nickname is the Messy Minimalist.
I do.
Yeah. So it's like, my wife and I don't have a lot of stuff, but like I'm really bad at like putting it away. It's like if I take my jacket off, it's like going on the couch.
Mm-hmm.
If I get mail, like I'll put it on the counter. I'm like, I'll get to that later. And of course, later turns into tomorrow and I add to that pile. So, I try to catch myself in those moments and I get better and better at it over time. But Greg, I can tell you as a recovering messy minimalist, commit to putting things away. When you take them, if you take your shoes off, put them right where they belong. When you take your coat off, put them right where they belong. It's funny because since I've been doing this, sometimes I'll forget. I'm like, oh, where's my jacket? Oh, I'm like, oh, it's in the closet. That's right. I put it away.
Mariah, why is my jacket where it's supposed to be?
Exactly. But it's funny because what happens is like I will, have stuff here and there, and then I hit my clutter threshold. And I'm like, okay. It's time to put everything away now. I can't stand this anymore.
Yeah.
The funny thing about Ryan, he actually owns less stuff than I do. It just looks like he owns more things. He owns 14 things, but they're strewn everywhere.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Strategically. And I remember we were roommates together way back, a long time ago in Montana. And he would just come home and not think, he didn't have that same visual sensitivity, right?
Yeah.
But his why was like, oh, I don't want to frustrate the other people in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And so quite often understanding what that why is for you, if you don't have that, because clearly Greg doesn't have that sensitivity.
No.
And that's okay. You don't have to have it. It's not that you should have it, right? But if there's something that's bothering you, it probably means you have a little bit of excess. And if it's a little messy to you, the way you can achieve calm, because decluttering isn't going to make you happier, but a lot of excess might make you significantly more discontented. And so it's this weird dichotomy because we often think if I just clean up my house, now I'm going to be perfect, I'm going to be happy, I'm going to be complete. Well, no, but the best way to incomplete yourself is to heap a bunch of excess on there that just gets in your way. You're either literally tripping over it or you're psychologically tripping over it.
Yeah. So I feel like the clutter in our space is this constant distraction, like notifications on your phone.
Ooh.
And when my client that I was describing before cleared that, she was able to identify all these other things in her life that weren't working.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you start there, you're faced to deal with yourself. And so that's where the inner work often begins after the outer work is complete.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy this standalone Patreon highlight? If so, you can listen to full episodes of the Minimalist Private Podcast, available exclusively on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/theminimalists or click the link in the description. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free.